Are prime lenses better or zoom lenses better? The truth may shock you. I wanted to share my perspective after around 4, hitting on 5 years of photography and deciding on gear and lenses, cameras, lighting, all that nonsense that we have to go through. After a while, you kind of figure out what works, what doesn't work, what's worth investing on, and what isn't. And so I'm here to try to help those who are starting off, or if you want to clean up your collection and condense a little bit, which is what I did over the last year or so. What is the best gear? What's the best lens to have, like, in your collection? And again, this isn't a purist. Like, you don't have to choose all primes or all zooms. You can have some of each. But as a general rule, when you're deciding to buy a new lens or starting off with a lens, you're trying to decide between one or the other because funds are limited. So let's get right into it. I'm going to do the advantages of primes, then the advantages of zooms, and then the negatives of each. And I'll tell you my conclusion, but it's up to you to make your own. So first, prime lenses. What is so amazing about them? So prime lenses are neat because they usually have, not all the times, less elements because it's one focal length, which means there's less moving around inside that lens. But this also means that the manufacturer had the opportunity to refine every single component inside that one lens so that it's maximized at that particular focal length. And so when you pick up a 35mm or a 50mm, you know you're getting a very good lens because it's designed to perform at that focal length. Another positive is you're likely to get a bigger f-stop. We're talking 1.8, 1.4, 1.2, even 0.95, 0.85, and so on. Because it's one focal length, they can maximize on that f-stop. Finally, they're most of the time, not always, pretty compact. Your 51.8, especially if it's a 1.8 or an f2, you're talking a pretty compact lens when we're talking about primes. So now, what are the advantages of zooms? Well, zooms obviously zoom. So you're getting a lot of focal lengths in one lens, in one package. Sometimes it's 16 to 35, 24 to 70, 70 to 200. You have basically 4 to 5 different prime lenses in one lens, with the caveat of the f-stop, of course, being a larger usually. But another advantage of having a zoom lens is you're going to be more flexible. You're going to be able to move in, move out with the lens without having to move physically, especially if you're limited in the position you're at, whether it be at a wedding, whether it be wildlife. You can't always move closer or farther away, so you need that zoom range. So due to the fact that you can zoom in and out, this is going to be useful for weddings, events, video, because you on the spot won't have to change a lens. You just adjust your focal length. And you can still do portraits even though you're going to have a smaller f-stop. You can still do it at a 2.8. So let's talk negatives. What are the negatives of primes? If you're restricted by space, you will be very limited. If I wanted to get a wide angle shot of this room, my limit is moving against this wall. If I can't get far enough to capture the entire room, I'm screwed. So that's when a 16 to 35 comes in to widen that perspective that you're able to capture. Or on the other side, let's say you see something from afar because you're just walking around, you're a photographer, want to get a good shot. You see something from afar, but that particular prime that you carry that day or set of primes it's not going to deliver that perspective because it's a 35mm. You're not going to get the compression of a 200mm. Another negative is, although you're getting large f-stops, you're going to pay for that in terms of weight. We're talking the 105 from Sigma at 1.4 or a G Master lens, an L lens from Canon. These large f-stops are huge, and like that 0.95 from Nikon. I don't know who buys it, but it's pretty heavy. And if you only have one focal length, as a prime user, if you're only using primes, of course, because I said you can use both, it's not bad. you would have to carry more than one lens to cover all the areas that you wanted. Let's say you encounter a situation where your 35mm is not going to cut it. You're going to have to scramble, get that other lens that has compressed abilities like 135mm, and you're going to scramble to switch it, miss the shot, or it's just time consuming and it's not effective. Lastly, another negative of primes is you could be looking at buying 3 to 5 prime lenses if you're focusing on prime, and they're going to be costing you several $1,000s because large f-stop is very desirable. You're going to pay more. So, negatives on zooms. That was a long list of prime negatives, by the way. Kind of hints at how I feel about it now. Negative on a zoom. You'll never hit a large f-stop. Maybe larger than f2 with the exception of that new Canon R lens. The size of the lens would be crazy, heavy, and it would just hinder you in a different way. Another negative is because you can zoom, you might get lazy. You might not move closer to something or farther away from something to get that perspective in that focal length that is appropriate for that situation. And so you're gonna have to practice deciding whether you need to move physically or zoom. My last negative for the zoom lens is that if you're starting off and you're at a limited budget, it's likely you're not going to get a high quality zoom for the same price as a high quality prime that's affordable. Now I'm talking your nifty 50mm 1.8. It's going to cost you like $150 to $200. A decent zoom lens that can perform, coming from the Sony world, we're talking $800 or more dollars. Overall, it's not a prime or zoom lens issue here because you can have both. But when you're starting off or you're trying to decide what you need in your kit, sometimes a zoom is better. And in my opinion, I think obviously you need a hybrid. But if I was hired for an event, I'm likely going to put that zoom on there because I don't know what's going to come at me. I don't know if I'm going to need a wider shot or a zoomed in shot, so I'd rather just carry that 24 to 70 versus restricting myself to a 50mm and be stuck in a situation where that is not appropriate. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Just a few tips on evaluating the differences between a prime and a zoom. Keep watching, we got more content coming.